The skies over the Indian subcontinent darkened in the first week of May 2025. A familiar tension gripped the region. It began with accusations, sharp and accusatory. India pointed the finger at Pakistan, alleging a series of drone and missile attacks on 3 of their military bases. These attacks, India claimed, were not just on their soil, but also within the disputed territory of Indian-administered Kashmir. Pakistan vehemently denied any involvement, countering with their own claims of repelling Indian drones violating their airspace. The stage was set for a dangerous escalation. The accusations and counter-accusations were not new. India and Pakistan, neighbors with a shared history and a fraught present, had been locked in a tense standoff for decades. The bone of contention, Kashmir, a region claimed by both but controlled in part by each. This latest flare-up, however, threatened to spiral out of control, pushing the 2 nuclear-armed nations to the brink of a full-blown conflict. The world watched with bated breath, hoping that diplomacy and restraint would prevail. The situation was further complicated by the shadow of terrorism. India had long accused Pakistan of harboring and supporting militant groups operating in Kashmir, a charge Pakistan consistently denied. The Pahalgam terror attack on April 22, 2025, which claimed the lives of 26 innocent civilians, had inflamed tensions. India vowed a strong response, promising to target those responsible, even if it meant crossing the line of control that separated the 2 countries in Kashmir. As accusations flew and tensions soared, the international community watched with growing concern. The United States, China, and other major powers urged both sides to exercise restraint and engage in dialogue. The risk of a wider conflict, one with potentially catastrophic consequences, was all too real. The world hoped, perhaps against hope, that cooler heads would prevail. The hope for peace proved short-lived. On May 8, 2025, India launched Operation Sindoor, a series of precision airstrikes targeting key Pakistani airbases. The Indian government claimed the operation was a direct response to the Pahalgam attack and aimed at crippling Pakistan's ability to launch cross-border strikes. The operation sent shockwaves through the region and beyond. India's fighter jets roared into action, striking 11 Pakistani airbases, including the critical Nur Khan airbase home to Pakistan's Air Mobility Command. The strikes, India asserted, were not aimed at starting a war but at sending a clear and unambiguous message. Pakistan's support for terrorism would no longer be tolerated. Pakistan, caught off guard by the scale and intensity of the Indian strikes, suffered significant losses. Initial reports suggested 31 Pakistani military personnel were killed and 57 others injured. The damage to Pakistani air bases, particularly Nur Khan, was extensive. Satellite images released later confirmed the destruction, revealing hangars reduced to rubble and aircraft shelters pockmarked with bomb craters. The strikes, however, were not without cost for India. Pakistan retaliated, launching its own airstrikes and shelling targets across the line of control. India reported at least 16 civilian casualties from these attacks. In the ensuing aerial engagements, 2 Indian fighter jets were shot down, a stark reminder of the human cost of the conflict. The skies over Kashmir, once a symbol of beauty and serenity, were now ablaze with the fury of war. The world reacted with alarm as the India-Pakistan conflict escalated. International condemnation was swift and near universal. The United Nations Security Council convened an emergency meeting, calling for an immediate ceasefire and urging both sides to exercise maximum restraint. The specter of a nuclear confrontation between 2 heavily armed neighbors loomed large, sending shivers down the spines of diplomats and world leaders. The United States, led by President Trump, stepped in to mediate, working frantically behind the scenes to de-escalate the situation. After days of intense diplomatic efforts, a ceasefire agreement was reached on May 10, 2025. The agreement, fragile as it was, offered a glimmer of hope for peace. Under the terms of the ceasefire, both India and Pakistan agreed to halt all military operations along the line of control. The Indus Waters Treaty, a vital water-sharing agreement between the 2 nations, which had been thrown into jeopardy during the conflict, remained in effect. However, future communication between the 2 sides was to be limited to the Director General of Military Operations, a clear indication of the deep mistrust that still prevailed. The airstrikes of May 2025, brief though they were, cast a long shadow over India-Pakistan relations. The conflict served as a stark reminder of the volatility of the situation and the ever-present danger of escalation. While the guns had fallen silent, the underlying issues that had sparked the conflict remained unresolved. The civilian cost of the conflict was undeniable. Beyond the casualties, the lives of countless people living along the border were upended. Schools were closed, businesses shuttered, and families forced to flee their homes seeking safety from the cross-border shelling. The psychological scars of the conflict, the fear and uncertainty, ran deep. The international community breathed a collective sigh of relief when the ceasefire came into effect. However, the fragility of the peace was evident to all. The root causes of the conflict, the disputed territory of Kashmir, cross-border terrorism, and the lack of trust between the two nations, remained unaddressed. The airstrikes of May 2025 served as a stark warning, a reminder that the path to peace in the Indian subcontinent remained long and arduous.